The restaurant was called Bellamy's, tucked away on a quiet street in northern Chicago where expensive cars lined up like they belonged there without question. The thick glass doors reflected the warm golden lights from inside, along with my own image, Logan Price, 37 years old, pausing for a few seconds before stepping in. I knew right away that I didn't fit in this place. The only decent shirt I owned was a blue one from a thrift store, its collar slightly frayed even though I'd ironed it the night before. My old leather shoes made a faint squeak on the dark wooden floor which gleamed under the chandelier overhead. Jazz music played softly, almost unreal, like a world far removed from the dark streets where I delivered packages at midnight. I wiped sweat from my palms onto my pants, took a deep breath, and approached the hostess stand. "I have a reservation," I said, my voice a bit hoarse from barely sleeping the night before. "Under Adam." The hostess looked at me for an extra second, her eyes flicking over me in that familiar way I'd gotten used to over the past 3 years. Then she nodded with a professional smile and led me inside. The table was in a secluded corner, private enough for conversations no one else needed to hear but close enough for passing glances. And there she was, Avery Dalton, sitting alone. In the photo Bryce had sent me, she looked gentle, almost fragile. But in person, she made me pause. It wasn't just her polished beauty. It was the quiet poise she carried. Her platinum blonde hair fell softly to her shoulders, and her deep red dress was tailored perfectly to her petite frame. She sat on a custom chair, her feet not quite touching the floor, but her back was straight, her posture unyielding. She was looking at her phone. When she heard the footsteps, she glanced up. For a split second, her eyes lit up with a hint of hope, but it faded just as quickly, replaced by a cool detachment that made my heart skip. "You're not Adam," she said. Her voice wasn't raised or sharp, but it cut clean through the air. I stopped in my tracks. I knew this moment was coming, but I hadn't expected it so fast. "No," I said slowly. "I'm not." Avery set her phone down on the table. Every movement she made was deliberate, like she was holding back from showing too much too soon. "I saw his photo," she said. "So, what is this?" I opened my mouth to lie the excuse I'd rehearsed, but as I looked into her eyes, shifting from disappointment to hurt, I couldn't do it. "I was hired," I said. $600. Adam didn't want to show up. He paid me to come here and ruin this date. The air between us seemed to freeze. Avery didn't respond right away. She just stared at me long enough that I wondered if she'd heard wrong. "You were hired," she repeated each word, measured to sabotage my date. "Yes." A smile appeared on her lips, but it wasn't warm. It was thin and icy. "How charming. At least you're honest enough to admit it." "I didn't mean to hurt you," I said, my voice dropping. "I just needed the money. I have a daughter. Her mom died 3 years ago. I work nights and I'm about to lose power at home. $600 to me. It's not a joke." Avery stood up. The height difference made me look down at her, but her gaze held steady calm in a way that felt almost unnerving. "Do you know what the worst part is?" she said. "I didn't choose to be born this way, but I've spent my whole life proving I deserve respect. And tonight one more person turns me into a punchline." She didn't wait for my reply. Avery grabbed her bag, turned, and walked away, leaving me there amid the flickering candlelight, the steady jazz, and a heavy wave of shame that settled over me like a wet blanket. The morning after, I woke up with that familiar emptiness gnawing at me. The apartment was cold. I'd turned off the heat the night before to save on the bill. Mira was still asleep in her little bed, clutching her worn teddy bear, the one with the frayed ear. She looked so peaceful, her small chest rising and falling, steadily oblivious to the mess I'd made of things. I watched her for a long time, longer than I should have, before getting up. I pulled on the same blue shirt from last night, the one that still smelled faintly of the restaurant's polished air, and headed out. The drive to Bryce Chandler's office felt longer than it was. His building was a red brick structure in the heart of downtown Chicago with large glass doors and a security guard in a crisp vest standing out front. I felt out of place from the moment I stepped inside, like I was intruding on a world that wasn't mine. Bryce was behind his desk when I walked in, smirking as soon as he saw me. "Mac," he said, leaning back in his chair. "How'd it go? Did she buy it?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out the 6 crisp $100 bills, and placed them on his desk. Bryce frowned, sitting up straighter. "What the hell are you doing?" "I'm not taking this money." He laughed a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Don't tell me you got a conscience all of a sudden." "I failed," I said, keeping my voice steady. "She knew right away I didn't ruin anything. I just ended up looking like a fool." "But you showed up," he countered, gesturing at the cash. "That's the deal. You did your part." "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "I have a daughter, and I can't let her grow up thinking her dad got paid to humiliate a woman just because she's different." Bryce leaned forward, his expression turning colder. "You know what $600 could do for that kid? Food on the table, maybe some new clothes. Hell, it could pay for her school stuff." "I know," I admitted, feeling the weight of it in my chest. It hurt to say it out loud because he wasn't wrong. Mira needed so much better doctors for her occasional asthma flares, books for school, even just a warmer coat for the winter. But keeping that money felt like poison now. That's exactly why I can't keep it." He stared at me for a moment, then shook his head with a scoff. "You're an idiot, Mac. Take the money and go." I didn't move. Instead, I turned and walked out, leaving the bills on his desk outside. The wind hit me hard, cutting through my thin shirt like knives. My hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the fear that was always there, lurking. No money meant scraping by even harder, maybe skipping meals or begging for extra shifts. But as I got back in my truck and started the engine, a strange lightness settled over me. At least I still had one thing I hadn't lost yet: my self-respect. 5 days passed in a heavy silence filled with thoughts that weighed on me like lead. I kept up my night shifts, slipping extra sugar into Mira's milk each morning before she woke and spending hours watching her sleep as the sun crept up. I tried to push the evening at Bellamy's out of my mind, but some mistakes don't fade with quiet. They stick like ink stains on white paper. That Saturday morning, I took Mira to the city library, our weekly ritual, a simple, sacred one for us both. The building was 5 stories tall, with high glass walls and a domed steel roof, the children's section on the 2nd floor, where Mira always headed first. There were beanbag chairs shaped like animals, soft carpeted floors, and hundreds of books stacked in rainbow rows. I was browsing a shelf of novels, my eyes not really focusing on the titles, when I heard a voice right behind me. "You again?" I turned, and there she was, Avery Dalton. She was dressed casually this time, a cream sweater with long sleeves, dark jeans, and beige flats. No evening gown, no meticulous makeup. She looked real approachable and beautiful in a soft, unassuming way that caught me off guard. "I'm not following you," I stammered, feeling awkward. I just bring my daughter here every week. It's our thing." Avery studied me for a long moment, not with anger, but with the searching gaze like she was piecing together something she hadn't noticed before. "What's her name?" she asked. "Mira," I replied. "She's 7, loves books about the ocean and animals." Right on cue, a small voice piped up from nearby, as if summoned by the mention. "Dad, I found the one about seahorses." Mira came running over, clutching a blue-covered book with illustrations of seahorses curling their tails. But when she saw Avery, she stopped short, not scared or shy, but curious, her head tilting as she took in the stranger. "Hello," Mira said politely, just like I'd taught her. Avery knelt down, bracing her hands on her knees to meet Mira at eye level. "You're very polite." Mira squinted, sizing her up like she was solving a puzzle. "You're small like me, but I'm small because I'm a kid. You're small like a fairy in a story." Avery laughed, a genuine light sound that surprised me. It was the first time I'd seen her smile like that, not forced or thin, but real, like a sudden summer rain breaking through sunshine. "No, I'm not a fairy," she said. Then, "Are you magic?" Mira asked, completely serious. Avery paused, then glanced up at me, her eyes softening in a way I hadn't expected. "Maybe a little magic," she replied, holding out her hand. "I'm Avery." Mira took it without hesitation. "I'm Mira, and I think you'd like seahorses, just like that." A child's hello, a simple handshake, an innocence without judgment. It opened a door I hadn't known was there. The library became our spot every weekend after that. We didn't talk about the past, not Bellamy's, not the setup. But the connection grew, especially between Mira and Avery, one book and one hot cocoa at a time in the downstairs cafe. Then one Sunday afternoon, Avery said it. "If you two are free, I'd like to invite you over for dinner sometime." I hesitated. "You sure?" She nodded. "I've got a chicken stew simmering since morning, and Mira mentioned wanting to meet my cat Biscuit." I looked at Mira, who was beaming, and couldn't say no. Avery's apartment was on the 17th floor of a sleek modern building in downtown Chicago, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the twinkling city lights. As Mira and I stepped out of the elevator, I felt that familiar unease creep in, like I was stepping into a life that wasn't meant for me. But Mira was bouncing with excitement, clutching the little drawing she'd made of a seahorse for Avery, so I pushed the feeling down. The door opened and Avery greeted us with a warm smile, her platinum hair tied back casually. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. The place was thoughtfully designed, everything at a comfortable height for her, from the cabinet handles to the light switches and the dining table. It wasn't ostentatious, no crystal chandeliers or marble everywhere, just clean lines, soft lighting, and a cozy warmth that made it feel lived in. Mira's eyes lit up when she spotted Biscuit, the lazy golden cat sprawled on a plush rug like he owned the place. "He's so fluffy," she squealed, dropping to her knees to pet him. Biscuit barely stirred, just flicked his tail in lazy acknowledgement, but Mira was hooked. She started chasing him gently around the living room, her laughter echoing off the walls. Avery led me to the kitchen, where the air smelled of simmering chicken stew and cinnamon tea. She poured us each a mug, the steam rising in lazy curls under the pendant lights. We sat at the island counter, the wood smooth under my hands, and for a moment it felt almost normal, like we were just two people sharing a quiet evening. "I have to be honest with you," Avery said after a sip, her voice turning serious. I set my mug down, sensing the shift. "Yeah." She looked at me steadily, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I'm not exactly ordinary. I mean, I have a name that most people in the shipping industry would recognize. I'm the daughter of Lawrence Dalton, CEO of Dalton & Sons. I felt a jolt like a puzzle piece snapping into place too suddenly. Dalton and Sons was huge, one of those companies that move freight across oceans, the kind you heard about in business news. I delivered packages to their warehouses a few times. Wow, I managed trying to process it. I had no idea. She nodded, her expression calm but watchful. I dropped the Dalton from my name when I was 23. I don't touch the inheritance. I don't use the family name to get jobs or doors opened. I wanted to live as me, not as some walking legacy. I sat there absorbing her words. It explained the poise, the quiet strength she carried, like someone who'd built walls not out of fear but out of necessity. I get it, I said finally. I don't care about the money, Avery. Are you sure? She asked, not accusing, just genuinely curious. I met her eyes, those clear ones that seemed to see right through me. Yeah, I'm sitting here drinking tea in the kitchen of the woman I humiliated once. But I feel lucky because I got a chance to fix it, to start over, and to see my daughter happy like she is right now. That's all I need. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. From the living room, Mira's giggles floated in as Biscuit finally decided to play batting at a toy mouse she'd dangled. The sound seemed to ease the tension, and Avery smiled faintly. We talked more after that. I opened up about Mira's mom, how she'd passed in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving me shattered and scrambling to keep our heads above water. The nights I worked doubles just to cover rent, the fear that one wrong move could take Mira away from me. Avery listened without interrupting her hand, occasionally tightening around her mug. Then she shared her side. I've always had to prove myself, she said softly. Being short, it's not something I chose. People look at me and see limitations first. Even my dad, he loves me, but he's protective in a way that sometimes feels suffocating. I fought for every bit of independence, every job, every friendship that sees me as Avery, not the Dalton heir or the little girl. I could hear the loneliness in her voice, the quiet battle she'd waged alone. That sounds exhausting, I said. But look at you. You've built this life on your terms. She glanced away toward the window where the city sparkled below. It is exhausting and lonely. Until recently, the conversation stretched on, shifting from anger we'd both carried from that night at Bellamy's to understanding then to something warmer. Mira's laughter from the other room became the backdrop, a reminder that sometimes healing comes in small, unexpected ways. By the time dinner was ready, the air between us felt lighter, like we'd crossed a bridge neither of us had seen coming. 1 year later, the spring morning in Chicago's Central Park was alive with cherry blossoms, their petals drifting like soft snow under a clear sky. Mira was twirling in her lilac dress, scattering handfuls of flowers into the air, her laughter carrying on the breeze. I stood there in my simple gray suit, feeling a mix of nerves and joy that tightened my chest. The setup was modest, just close friends, a small acoustic band strumming gentle tunes and rows of white chairs facing a flower arch. I watched as Avery approached, her arm linked with her father's. Lawrence Dalton? He'd been against us at first, his protective instincts clashing with my ordinary life, but time had softened him. As they reached me, he looked me in the eye, his grip firm on my hand. Take care of her, like your own life depends on it. I will, I promised, meaning every word. Avery was radiant in her cream wedding gown, simple and flowing with a veil that caught the light like whispers. Her eyes met mine, steady and full of the quiet strength I'd come to love. The ceremony was brief. No grand speeches or flashy displays, just vows exchanged under the blooming trees with the city humming faintly in the distance. When it was my turn, I took her hands in mine, feeling the warmth that had pulled me through so many doubts. Avery, you gave me something I never dared dream of, a second chance. I hurt you once, and I'll carry that regret forever. But you saw past it, let me make it right. I promise every day will be a step towards you. No turning back. I'll love you like Mira loves life, with a heart that doesn't know fear. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled through them. That real unguarded smile that always melted me. Logan, you entered my world like a wake-up call. From anger to forgiveness to this love we built. You're not perfect, but you're honest, gentle, and you see me as me, not more, not less. I don't need flawless. I need someone who stands in his mistakes and grows from them. That's you. We kissed then, soft and sure, as the guests clapped and the blossoms swirled around us. Mira cheered from the front row, her voice cutting through the applause. I knew it. Avery's dad's magic. We both turned laughing and pulled her into a hug. She squeezed us tight, her small arms wrapping around what felt like our new beginning. It wasn't fairy tale magic, the kind from Mira's books. It was the real kind, the one born from forgiveness, from trusting when it's hard, from giving second chances even when the world doesn't. Avery and I had started in the wreckage of a cruel joke, but we'd pieced together something stronger, a family, a home, a life where differences didn't divide but connected us deeper. As the sun dipped lower, painting the park in gold, I held them both close, knowing this was our story now, built from broken parts into something whole.